Let's head across the ditch to New Zealand. Catch up with some things happening in that part of the world. Selwyn Manning from livenews.co.nz. How are you this morning, Selwyn?
Yeah, very good, Peter. A little bit cold, but not too bad. Can't complain.
That's it. We're down on the downhill slide to summer.
Absolutely. We're over that winter solstice, and
yes,
I guess everyone is like you were saying to me just before we went on air, that ticking down the days toward springtime.
Well, I am, that's for sure. But on that, pretty heavy snow happening though, not far from you actually in Auckland.
Yeah, that's right. It's snowing very heavily around the 300 kilometres south of Auckland. That's around the Central Plateau area, just south of Lake Taupo, for those who know the North Island of New Zealand. And around there's a volcanic plateau. There's Mount Ruapehu, Mount Ngaruahui, and Mount Tongariro. All three of those volcanoes are active at different times, and most recently, I think we've spoken on your program about it too. Tongariro has certainly been letting out a lot of steam of late. But the snow is coming down thick and fast. The weather people tell us that it is actually snowing quite heavily down to around 900 metres above sea level. So certainly around the ski fields of the central North Island, it's leading up to some fantastic, perfect ski conditions, particularly this weekend and on the beginnings of next week, Peter. The weather people are just saying, and I note here, Weather Watch's Philip Duncan, he's saying in the New Zealand Herald, the news will be welcomed by skiers and boarders, especially with sunny, calm weather expected for many on our ski fields later next week. So it's perfect in the sense that we've got this great big cold southerly low cold front coming up the country, bringing all the new snow with it, and then there's icy kind of conditions with fine skies coming on the back of it. So, Peter, and people in South Australia, Adelaide, they're thinking it's a good time to kind of take a bit of a midwinter break. Skiing might be an option.
Yeah, no, it would be great. So with all that, there's not, sort of the concerning weather conditions as well that you have had in some areas in the past few weeks?
Yeah, no, they're saying that this isn't a massive storm. It's basically just going to come through like a stereotypical winter snowstorm. Yeah. And so it's not going to cause major havoc around the place like we have seen in recent months on gales, etc., and flooding all over the place. Got to say, too, that down on the South Island, I think, like Queenstown, it's quite a popular spot for a lot of people, both tourist and from Kiwis as well, going down there. There's ski fields all around there. It had an overnight low of -7 in Queenstown.
Ooh, okay.
So, the conditions down there for skiing are obviously really good. I'm just looking at the weather map now, Peter, and it's showing sunny skies in the South Island. So that'll be, I'm sure that it's really going off there.
Nothing like it being, in a snow region where there's, good snowfalls, and then you get those clear blue skies. It's
beautiful.
Beautiful, yeah. You much of a skier?
Oh, a bit of a clumsy dude on the ski field, Peter. If I pushed my limits, which wouldn't be too high above the bar, I'd probably spend the next 2 months in traction or something. But I used to do ice skating when I was, ice hockey and that when I was younger. But this is a different type of art, isn't it?
Indeed, it is. Yes, gravity plays into it a lot more when you when you got a steep slope to go down, doesn't it? As opposed to flat ice.
You don't need to be Olympic quality to have a great time.
Well, that's true. Yes, exactly. And you can have a lot of fun just falling down all the time, as long as it's the nice soft snow, not the hard compacted stuff.
Exactly. You're closer to the ground to pick up a snowball and biff it at someone.
Exactly. You can have fun doing that too. And then, of course, there's just there's usually a bar somewhere nearby as well. To help things out. Let's get on to some more serious matters too. Politics. Now, we've had a lot of our Labor Party, seem to be self-destructing only up until only a couple of weeks ago, and it's all settled down, as you've probably been following it. But appears a destabilisation campaign within your Labor Party there, your opposition party.
Yeah, that's right. It does appear that. The stabilisation campaign is how most of us are kind of reading it over here, Peter. It's begun, in my view, inside the New Zealand Labor Party caucus. There's been rumours coming out left, right and centre, but usually MPs using a bit of a buffer there, not directly speaking. And that's creating quite a scene, really, around the leader of the New Zealand Labor Party, a guy called David Shearer. Now, David Shearer has been, he's inherited a lot of instability within Labour in the sense that the various factions are all kind of trying to settle in and how they'd work with each other. And this is 4 years into an opposition pattern now, and I guess the public, the membership of the Labour Party over here in New Zealand, and some within the caucus are saying enough's enough. We want strong leadership, and we want to have a look at this. So the destabilisation campaign has definitely begun, in our view. And there's a few things that are kind of come into alignment over here, Peter, and that's basically that David Shearer, he is now really being held accountable for his inability to convince a satisfactory number of those polled to vote for him and Labour. Labour here has been struggling in the polls to kind of get up really into the mid-30s. As soon as it kind of reaches that in some polls, into around 34, 35, next poll comes along and it's right down again around 30, 31. Also, Julia Gillard's removal from the ALP over there in your part of the world, that leadership coup that occurred over there has seen what has been observed over here to have benefited the ALP when Kevin Rudd has taken over, that there's been a surge of sorts in the polls.
Yeah,
now,
a big surge. Yeah,
that hasn't been lost on those over here. They're kind of looking at it and they're thinking, well, maybe we're not in the time zone where you just can't replace a leader when they're not actually getting the numbers in the polls. Maybe there is still time before the election year next year here in New Zealand. So that's another tangent that's kind of come, or element that's come into alignment there. The third is last week, this huge issue developed within the Labour Party. There was a remit that was getting drafted, that was a draft remit that was going to go to the conference, real political, party political kind of stuff. Doesn't really necessarily gel with the New Zealand public or the potential voter, but it was all about gender selection and getting the number or the proportion of women up to 50-50. So they wanted 50-50, 50% women in the party, representing the party in Parliament by 2017. They certainly wanted it to be in the high 40% at the next election. Now, to achieve that, this remit was saying in some electorates we will exclude men from being able to even compete to become a candidate. And that was basically the proposal, to exclude males from having a shot in some electorates if that local electorate requested that from the Labour Party organisation, put it that way. Now that obviously spurred a huge response amongst the public, but certainly the media just went, mainstream media went wild on it, and caused all people, all MPs in the Labour Party caucus to say we want parity, we want 50-50 gender split in our parliament, but we'll look at another way of achieving that as opposed to exclusion. So those three elements have really, really caused the Labour Party to be falling apart, really, in a sense. And so we started getting rumours from Sunday night through this week where there was a letter circulating, was one of the rumours, where David Shearer was going to be requested to stand down to, all sorts of rumours around his leadership, that there was a coup in place. These were the names of the new factions, etc., etc. That was juxtapositioning for power. Then as soon as that aspect and that element broke in the mainstream media by a guy called Duncan Garner, all the contacts went to ground and went quiet.
Oh, okay.
So the destabilisation's begun.
Okay. Is or the Nationals or anyone sort of more to the right of the political spectrum, playing into this in any way or taking advantage of it? Yeah,
they're loving it. They're relishing
it. They are, yeah.
As you'd imagine, any kind of instability you could see over your
But are they just sitting back and enjoying it or actively participating?
Well, both can hardly contain the smiles and grins, is probably the best way of looking at it. But no, it's an interesting one. Those in the right-leaning pundits are trying to claim a certain amount of territory here where they've provided influence and fuel to the mainstream machine, to the MPs basically really putting the acid on the Labour Party. Now, I've got to say, in Parliament yesterday, I think the right and the Nationals here were expecting Labour to come in and look pretty limp and, collapse into their chairs and wipe their brows, But it had an absolute solidifying effect in the House, and we saw some of the best debates that we've seen in a long, long, long time coming from the Labour benches. But once again, this kind of destabilisation, like you could see when it was all occurring with Julia Gillard, that certainly erodes a party's ability to have a fair shot, if you like, at the elections, and perhaps it takes a leadership change to allow that party to get up there.
And it certainly doesn't help when polling is as low as what those figures were you gave before, which were sort of similar to what we were seeing here. And I guess also plays into the public's perception of the politicians. I base that on a lot of the calls I get here and hear on other programs. Much happening in New Zealand just in regard to how people see the sort of this internal issues.
On your side.
Here,
the public hates instability. So what we saw was, when the Labour Party was in government in the 1980s, David Lange led government, and then David Lange was stepped down. They had Geoffrey Palmer went in there, highly credible and still is player in the political and legal spectrum here, areas here. The instability, the public has always just switched off parties, Peter, and they just go into free fall as far as support is concerned. Whether or not the Labour Party can show that it can break that pattern in the New Zealand kind of voting culture is up to them, I guess, to chance it, really.
Yeah, interesting. Well, you've written all that in a blog online as well, thedailyblog.co.nz. What's all this about? A leadership coup. So you get more on that blog on that. Selwyn, many thanks. Have a great week, and we'll catch you again next week. Enjoy that snow if you get a chance to zip down to it.
Will do.
Okay, thanks, mate. Selwyn Manning in New Zealand. Head to livenews.co.nz for more.